All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You know how we do it around here, getting into the nitty-gritty.
That's right.
Some really interesting stuff. And today, we are looking at some common mistakes
Yes.
that people make when they're speaking English. We've got this great example script from a short English learning podcast.
Yeah.
But we're not just going to, point out the errors and be like, ha, you got this wrong.
Right.
We're really going to take it a step further and sort of like look under the hood.
Yeah.
And see why these mistakes happen.
Absolutely.
Because what can these mistakes teach us about the way English works?
That's the really interesting part. The mistakes are inevitable when you're learning a language, but actually they tell us so much about how the language functions. And they can even give us a glimpse into the structures of other languages and how they might tackle the same concepts.
I like that, these mistakes are inevitable,
Yeah.
but we can really learn from them.
Exactly.
So let's start with a phrase that I bet a lot of people have heard and maybe even said themselves. I am having a headache.
Ah.
Now, have you ever stopped to think about what's technically wrong with that?
Well, you see, English can be very particular about how we talk about states of being versus things that we possess. So we have a headache. We don't have a headache that's happening right now, or we are having a headache. It's a state of being, just like we are tired or we are happy. It's a quirk of how we categorize these experiences.
It's almost like we're assigning it.
Yes.
Like an object.
Exactly, like a possession.
Yeah, like an object that we possess rather than something that is...
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you wouldn't say, I am tall. You'd say, I have tallness, if you wanted to follow that same kind of logic.
I have tallness.
Right.
I like that. So,
It sounds a little strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, you don't really hear people say that, but
No, you don't.
it makes so much sense when you think about it that way. And I think that this is similar to how people get tripped up with married with versus married to.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be married to? Why can't it be married with?
Prepositions. Oh, those tiny little words that can cause so many headaches for English language learners.
Yes, they do.
It's true that sometimes there isn't a logical reason. You just have to learn it. That's how we say it. But in the case of married to, I think it might stem from the idea of marriage as a kind of joining or connection to implying that closer, more permanent bond.
I like that.
Of
like a joining or a connection.
Yeah, and I think it reflects how prepositions often have these deeper meanings than we realize.
Right.
And in some languages, the whole concept of marriage is expressed so differently that they might not even have a direct equivalent to this prepositional dilemma.
That's fascinating.
Isn't it?
Yeah, so it's really about how different languages look at these ideas
Exactly.
in a different way. Speaking of things that kind of trip us up.
Yeah.
How about the word comfortable?
Oh, yes. Comfortable.
It looks straightforward.
It does. It looks like it should be easy. Yeah. But the pronunciation can be a bit of a tongue twister.
It can.
For sure.
It seems like it should be comfortable.
Right. Comfortable, just like it's spelled.
Right. Just like it's spelled.
But it's actually more like comfortable.
Comfortable. Yeah.
And it's not the only word in English where the spelling and the pronunciation seem to have taken completely different paths.
It's like they got separated at birth or something.
I know. It's like they went on a journey and ended up in different places.
Yeah, it's true. Like Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday is a great example.
Like what's going on?
We don't say Wednesday, do we?
Wednesday.
No.
No.
Like English has this secret code sometimes.
Yeah, and while we're talking about decoding, what about this tendency to add an extra preposition?
Oh, yes.
To some verbs.
Yes.
Like discuss about.
Discuss about instead of just discuss.
Yeah, like what's up with that?
That is a great observation. And while it's not technically correct in standard English, it is a very, very common mistake, especially for people whose first language isn't English. And it might be because of how other languages structure their sentences.
So that's where it's coming from.
Exactly. Some languages naturally use more prepositions than English, so it's understandable that those patterns might creep in when people are learning English. It's a good reminder that language is always evolving and adapting, even if it means bending the rules a little bit sometimes.
So it's okay if it happens.
Well, in casual conversation, it's often overlooked, but in more formal writing, you'd want to stick to the standard form.
Right.
Just to be safe.
To be safe.
Yeah.
Now, that actually makes me wonder, does that happen with other verbs too? Because I sometimes hear people say things like, he suggested me to join.
Oh, yes. Suggest is a tricky one. It doesn't take a direct object followed by to.
Okay.
So we wouldn't say, he suggested me to join. We would say something like, he suggested that I join, or he suggested joining.
I see.
You see the difference?
So it's almost like
Yeah, it's a subtle but important distinction.
Suggest is about, like, the suggestion.
Exactly. Suggest is all about proposing an idea or an action, but not directly telling someone what to do.
It's like a subtle nudge.
It is a gentle nudge in the right direction,
Yeah.
rather than a command.
Okay, now before we wrap up, let's not forget about those colorful expressions that make English so vibrant and sometimes so baffling.
Oh, yes.
Idioms.
Idioms.
On cloud nine. Don't cry over spilled milk. I mean,
These are great ones.
these are great examples, and they paint such vivid pictures in our minds.
They do.
Like, how did these even come about?
I love idioms because they're like little time capsules of culture and history.
I like that typecast.
So, for example, on Cloud 9 likely comes from a time when meteorologists used a cloud classification system with 9 levels, the highest being associated with pure bliss.
So there's like a reason.
There's a reason, there's a history behind it.
Yes.
And then don't cry over spilled milk, on the other hand, speaks to a more practical mindset, accepting what can't be changed and moving on.
So like practical advice.
Exactly. Practical advice wrapped up in a memorable phrase.
Yeah.
They add so much color and personality to the language, don't they?
They really do. And it's so interesting because even native English speakers make these kind of mistakes sometimes. Even I've been guilty of saying I'm having a headache or, misusing a preposition here and there.
Oh, absolutely. We all do it. It's part of being a language user.
Yeah.
Language is a living, breathing thing. It's constantly changing, borrowing, adapting, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
I like that it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's never static, and that's the beauty of it.
So next time you hear someone stumble over a tricky phrase or use an idiom that seems to come out of nowhere, remember it's all part of this wonderful tapestry of English.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's all part of the rich fabric of the language.
And we can all learn from these mistakes.
Absolutely, and even have a little laugh along the way.
All right, everybody. That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye. Bye.